Hey friends, thanks so much for tuning in. It's wonderful to have you back. You know how much we love you guys, and thank you for checking out sgtreport.com for real news 24/7, regardless of what our enemy over there at Google says, Sundar Pichai. He calls us fake news. That's because we are challenging to the establishment narrative. Guys, I have back on the line our good friend Will Lehr from Perpetual Assets. Will, how are you?
Great, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you back, man. And first of all, I want to do a little tease here, guys. We have some interesting information, or I should say Will does, about a potential Comex killer. So stay tuned for that. But first, Will, if you don't mind, I want to talk about the murder of Seth Rich, which in today's news by the mainstream Mockingbird media right now today is being completely ignored. All of this information spilling out that Podesta and Clinton may be involved, allegedly, involved in the murder of Seth Rich.
Actually, I have a source inside the police department that has looked at me straight in the eye and said, Rod, we were told to stand down in this case, and I can't share any information with you. Now, that's highly unusual for a murder investigation, especially from a police department. Again, I don't think it comes from the chief's office, but I do believe there is a correlation between the mayor's office and the DNC, and that's the information that's going to come out tomorrow.
Well, it's being ignored right now by the mainstream Mockingbird media, who is instead continuing to focus on trying to impeach Trump. James Comey was obstructing justice, and because Trump fired him, this corrupt mainstream media wants to target Trump as obstructing justice, trying to cover up this Russian tie, right? That's what they're saying. They're conflating it. There's a straw man. It's a lie, and they want to impeach Trump, when really, if we had an honest media, if we had honest people in government, they'd be saying, we need to investigate Podesta and Clinton. But they're not going to do it. They're not going to allow it.
Unbelievable. So this is a kid who's working on the campaign, who leaks God knows what he found. Can you imagine? I mean, with Pizzagate, I mean, it's probably Pizzagate stuff. He leaks it about his boss and gets killed.
This isn't unique to third world banana republics. It's going on right now in this country, and it makes us wonder if Scalia himself was murdered by these people.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. Look at the Clinton body count, man. It's deep. It goes back 30, 40 years.
Sure does. They're going to conflate it, they're going to lie about it, and they're not going to address this murder, this political assassination of Seth Rich. That's what it was. Who ordered it? Podesta? Clinton?
I would say add another one to the Clinton body count. Like we said, it goes back 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it sure does. It's a long, long list, and the Clintons have blood all over their hands. Well, let's bridge over to economics. I want to just reset the stage for people who think that this discussion of an impending collapse of the U.S. dollar or the euro or the global economy is merely fear-mongering. Well, let me remind people what happened in 2008, when the whole world was nearly brought to its knees and we almost witnessed the death of the dollar. Here's Representative Ken Jaworski explaining on C-SPAN.
Their estimation was that by 2 o'clock that afternoon, $5.5 trillion would have been drawn out of the money market system of the United States, would have collapsed the entire economy of the United States, and within 24 hours, the world economy.
Will, were you able to hear that okay?
Yes.
The reason I wanted to play that for you and for the audience again is because people call it fear-mongering. But what I just played is a cold, hard fact of how bad the situation was in 2008. So, Will, my question for you is, do you think things have actually improved since 2008, or have they just papered over everything with a whole lot more debt?
Yeah, they have not only not improved, they've gotten severely worse, many, many multiples, because of downright money creation and downright theft and downright criminality. Not only have they papered over, they have created incredible tricks and backdoors and new financial instruments and ways to funnel money from here or there so as to divert. The money market example he just made is a perfect example here. He mentioned a potential $5 trillion in money market withdrawals in a short period of time. I don't even think that's feasible or possible right now because they've built in backstops where there are withdrawal limits. It couldn't happen now.
I wonder if there's that much cash even in the system. How could they possibly pull out $5 trillion? The banks don't have it.
Right.
And I'm serious when I say that. And what I mentioned to Bill Holter about that particular soundbite is that isn't the common man panicking. That's not a bank run by the average Joe. That is a coordinated attack from the Wall Street or City of London power centers, the money centers. Those are the bankers trying to bring the economy or the government to its knees.
Absolutely. Yeah. We should also add regarding money markets, back, 3, 4, 5 months ago now, all money market accounts in the U.S. are no longer in cash equivalents, which is what they're supposed to be. So if you call your broker and you sell stocks or bonds or whatever, and that money from the sale should be in cash, right, in U.S. dollars, and it should be held in your cash account at your trading firm or your brokerage. Well, it's not anymore. That is money market, and those are now invested into short-term U.S. Treasuries. So to answer your question, Sean, no, those dollars are not there. They don't exist. All those dollars that people think they have that are sitting in money market have been used to buy short-term Treasuries.
Well, the other thing, too, that most people don't realize is that if you have, say you have half your life savings in a Wall Street IRA or a SARSAP or a 401k, and say you have another big nut of your money in a savings account or a checking account at your local bank, if that bank collapses, well, you're a creditor. You're standing in line behind the bondholders trying to get your cash back. And creditors, they're typically paid back, if they're paid back at all, 10 cents on the dollar.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. Cash deposits were legally turned in. This is another one of the tricks up their sleeve that they did here since the last hiccup in 2008. They enforced it so that all bank deposits are actually on the other side of the balance sheet. They're creditors, as you just mentioned.
All right. Well, let me ask you this. For those of us that are mighty fed up with the criminality of the Wall Street banking establishment and extremely over-the-top fed up with the shenanigans and outright criminality at the Comex, where paper metal is just created into existence to meet demand. What are your thoughts? Is there any silver lining? Is there any light at the end of this tunnel, which has caused so many of us to feel despair as the cryptocurrencies literally rise to new highs day after day after day, and silver and gold just continue to be pummeled by paper?
Yeah, it's something to watch. It seems like the cryptos, Bitcoin, are freely traded monetary instruments, or less manipulated. It seems to me this is how we're going to see gold and silver trade once the manipulation is broken. And the manipulation is going to break, and it's going to happen most likely in the physical market. The paper shenanigans, all of this massive Comex paper casino that has been built as a mechanism to suppress the metals and suppress the prices and psychologically abuse you and me and everyone else who's been buying the stuff. And, as you eloquently said, watching our stack just shimmer while stocks are making new highs. It's funny you mentioned the Comex. Yeah, Andrew just mentioned something about a Comex default right around the corner. And I just got an email from Jim Willey and his Inside Crew this morning about a Hong Kong, and this is public news, Hong Kong just announced days ago a new physically derived gold contract. So the Hong Kong exchange has a physically settled the renminbi and U.S. dollar gold futures. So they're basically it's an alternative to the Comex. It's a physical derived settlement marketplace. And one of these gentlemen is saying that the London market development, because the key fact is that the London Metals Exchange is a subsidiary of the Hong Kong Exchange, and therefore the London market development might be what Andrew Maguire was talking about, referring to a Comex default around the corner. So the new September launch of the Hong Kong Exchange contract plus the London version in July might make them hasten the demise and default finally. So this is big. A Comex default would be a huge force majeure. I mean, it would be a massive event in the physical silver market, gold market, and have ripple effects, as you well know, into every other financial industry imaginable. I mean, that would be a huge Achilles heel. So yeah, I think all this stuff is brewing. It's around the corner. I think the metals, the criminal Western banking cabal, they have a very powerful grip, Sean. If you studied these people and their incredible reign over humanity over the last, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, even thousands, really. If you look at what they have done specifically here in the West, I mean, the psychological abuse, specifically with the metals, they control entire. I mean, they manipulate the biggest financial industry in the world, the bond markets. They literally are able to manipulate the bond markets, the equity markets. As Bill said, I think in your recent interview, that we're all going to be surprised that the stock markets are going to just keep going up. And it doesn't surprise me. The Exchange Stabilization Fund, these guys are just creating funny money out of nowhere, out of thin air. I think it's going to go to a hyperinflationary event. It's going to go to a complete hyperinflation of the dollar. And I think the metals are going to break out, most likely with a Comex default, something like this.
Now, it's interesting that you mentioned that, I guess, you could call it a Comex killer, but, maybe it really will be an LBMA killer, because we see, CME Group and Reuters bowing out of the gold fix. There's something very strange going on at the LBMA. I've talked about this with McIlvaney. I've talked about it with Bill Holter. I've talked about it with anybody who wants to try to give me some insight, Turd Ferguson. The LBMA has smoke coming out of the vault. There's something going on at the LBMA, which you just alluded to, that's supposed to be a physical metals exchange. So this new Hong Kong gold contract, that may not be a Comex killer, because the Comex can continue just to settle in paper like they have for, God knows how long at this point. But the LBMA, there is something seriously wrong at the LBMA. Maybe this will be an LBMA killer.
Yeah, and the extension with this London arm, this arm of the Hong Kong exchange operable in London, could be the massive game changer. Yeah, to the LBMA, absolutely.
I wanted to ask you this. One of my theses about the cryptocurrencies was that this may have been rolled out by an intelligence agency to brainwash the masses into accepting digital currency, because that's where the bankers want to take us. And it's something that should be mentioned. But I just want to talk about this ransomware thing, because apparently, because of Microsoft Windows, and we all, none of us here listening care much for Bill Gates, the vaccine king, this ransomware is beginning to spread. And they're saying it's like nothing they've ever seen. And then Putin lashed out to jab the NSA for letting the genie out of the bottle here. Boy, I tell you what, between Microsoft and Bill Gates and the NSA and the CIA, what can we even possibly believe is real anymore? I mean, is ransomware just an alphabet agency backdoor gimmick to bring the world to their knees if they want?
It is very true, Sean. We are at a moment in time of complete and utter deceit. It's quite unprecedented, the level of truth versus fiction that exists in today's paradigm. I would be very wary of this ransomware stuff. I mean, you can be very wary of anything that these large corporate governments are jumping on and peddling as a threat, or this is another terrorist, right? This is another ISIS or Al Qaeda. I think there are.
Well, more and more, it's just become evident that it's the government that's the terrorist. It's the intelligence agencies that really foster or foment the terror. Really, once you're awake, like we are, and our audience is, that's what you come to realize.
Absolutely. Yeah, you come to realize that, government sucks.
Yeah, I'm starting to resonate more and more and more with the Jeff Berwick anarcho-capitalist view of the world.
It's a very peaceful way to subscribe. It can be somewhat utopia-esque. I mean, it's hard, if we, again, social contracts, we can I hate to use this word, but we can regulate our behaviors as a society so that we can, live together peacefully and follow certain handshake kind of rules, right?
Well, and I'm sorry to keep interrupting, but now I'm passionate about this, because it was Thomas Jefferson who said, the only reason to resort to government at all is to protect our liberty, right? That's the only mandate they have from the people. And what are they doing now? What are they doing? They're breaking down doors because you haven't paid your taxes. They set up an IRS with rules so onerous and so impossibly long that nobody can follow them. So really, if they want to target any American, they can come after you for tax evasion, just based on the complexity of the IRS guidelines. Nobody can read them. That is not liberty. That is overt tyranny. That is what we have allowed to happen now in this country and all over the globe. These governments are tyrannical. They're not really interested in protecting our liberties. They seem to be more interested in taking our liberties from us.
Absolutely. And I think that's exactly what this ransomware attack is. It's an attack on Bitcoin. It's an attack which Bitcoin it's free money. And it's becoming evident as that. And I think that certain criminal bankers, and Western governments are going to fight it tooth and nail. Interesting times, man. I think, your idea that the potential, release of these cryptocurrencies was sort of a CIA or some three-letter covert op to get people to psychologically accept, the mark of the beast in the future is a valid concern. I think once you really dive into a lot of the open source nature of what these cryptos are and where they're going, if that is true or a possibility, it's almost like the bad guys release this idea, and then the free market, the honest free market,
right.
Genius honest free market was able to develop it into something better. I mean, some of these cryptos are so incredibly untrackable. I mean, it's really kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, actually. I mean, we get into sort of this good guys, bad guys, Bix Weir kind of territory here where things get so complex. You could say, well, they did this to do A, but then B happened because it was really the good guys. I mean, it gets very, very complex, and you really have to speculate about a lot of this stuff. But you're right. That's the point I wanted to make about the other cryptos. Bitcoin fostered a whole industry of really smart people who are not CIA to come up with other competing cryptos and other types of blockchains and other technologies that are really, really showing a lot of promise. Ethereum, Litecoin, Dash, maybe, I don't know. But there are a lot of competing cryptos now, so definitely a space to keep your eye on. And I wanted, before we lose you, Will, to talk about how people can diversify out-of-paper products by using your expertise. Will works for perpetualassets.com, guys, and if you have all of your money tied up in Wall Street paper, Will can definitely help. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Will?
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, we're of course, we love the metals, and we have for a long time, despite the last 4 years. I mean, we haven't had movement. Silver used to be volatile. Remember when silver was volatile? When it moved like a lot? I mean, we had these smackdowns. Shoot, man, you could have a $2 or $3 move down typically, overnight. It was insane. This was only, 4, 5, 6 years ago, and we've been lulled to sleep with these just, $16, $18 range the last several years. We have a precious metals debit card that we offer that is pretty awesome. It's a Visa. It's a standard Visa bank card, so it still functions through the SWIFT system, through the U.S. dollar payment system. But your Visa, you're holding a Visa card, but your metals are held. It's not denominated in dollars. It's all held in ounces in a segregated vault up in Spokane, Washington. And as you swipe your card, you are able to transact in U.S. dollars, but actually spending down, I should say, your silver or your gold balance at the vault. I think that the future of that is going to be a blockchain smart contract type of system where, think about this, Sean, where we walk in somewhere with your cell phone and this particular business accepts cryptos or the crypto of the future. They accept Bitcoin. It could be linked. It could be easily tied to the biggest one, to Bitcoin. So you walk in, they accept Bitcoin, and you're able to log into your account. You see, okay, I have 116 ounces of silver, and I have 3/4 of an ounce of gold on deposit. Click here. I'm going to select the silver. Boom, Bitcoin payment. Actually, it's going to be using my silver. There's no U.S. dollar transaction even taking place. Like, this is the future, and it's already really here. Some of them are already in development. But our IRA product also is pretty awesome for anyone who has an IRA or old 401k. This is a way to basically it's a type of self-directed IRA where the IRA invests into a limited liability company that the individual is going to manage as an investment holding company. Long story short, it allows you to take your money out of the system, but it's still in an IRA, so there's no taxes, there's no penalties, and you can invest in just about anything imaginable. There are prohibited transactions, but you can invest in physical silver eagles and have them stored anywhere you want. They don't have the third-party storage requirement that other bullion does in an IRA. So with this platform, you can buy silver eagles with your IRA and bury them in a hole in your backyard. You can do the same thing with cryptos with this and hold the private keys yourself. You can own real estate. You could invest in, again, just about anything imaginable. We've had folks do firearms. We've had, there are certain, there are prohibited things we have to walk you through, but nonetheless, you can get physical metals and without paying taxes and penalties. When we learned about it, we cashed out our 401k IRA, cashed it out, paid taxes and penalties, and bought metal. Of course, at $30 silver, that proved to be a bad investment.
Right.
Today. Now it's, which is driving people to cryptos. Again, side note as we go off again, but I think that's another reason the cryptos are rallying. Bitcoin as well is you get people like ourselves that have been into the metals, that have been in the alternative money space, let's call it, for many years. Bitcoin comes up as an incredible alternative money, and as in its development the last 7 years now. So yeah, I think a lot of our dollars have, as a community, have potentially been going into the metals, realizing, hey, this is a place for potential gains. Yes, there's incredible risk, but anyway, it's an exciting time. It really is.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't know that people could use this self-directed IRA that could be set up through you guys to even buy some crypto. So that kind of brings the conversation full circle. It's a curious thing. I'm not a giant proponent of people running out and buying Bitcoin when it's now around $1,800 an ounce or $1,800 a coin here. So I just still feel like, certainly if it pulls back a lot, 40%, how volatile these things can be. I think there should be room, at least people should have an open mind to maybe dip the foot in the pool and, put 1 or 2% of your assets into that space just to see where it's going. Because, again, the web bots, although they've been very wrong about silver for a very long time, have been right about Bitcoin. And I think the web bots, Cliff High's work is suggesting Bitcoin will go north of $10,000 US eventually. So again, guys, the reason we talk about the cryptos is because we have an open mind. You come here for truth. I don't have all the answers as it relates to cryptocurrencies, and I don't profess to be an expert. We're just having the conversation because the cryptos are going north while gold and silver continue to go south. So anyway, if you guys are interested in talking to Will personally about any questions you have about this stuff and as it relates to your paper assets on Wall Street, Will, how do they get a hold of you?
Our website, perpetualassets.com. Of course, you can call us. Our phone number's on there as well, 888-281-2630. Ask for myself or Gus. We're happy to talk. Leave a message if we can't pick up or can't get to you. I'm glad you mentioned Cliff real quick. I'll give him a plug. I love his work. In fact, and this is to your point, Sean, don't go in and jump into Bitcoin right now at $1,800. It might pull back heavily and then keep on going, with speed. But expose yourself to the space and start learning. It was Cliff's work that actually caused me to put a pretty large bet on Ethereum months ago. I mean, if you put money anywhere in cryptos a month ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, you've done really well.
Well, yeah, and I'll just say this because most folks don't know. Ethereum sat at $7 for a good portion of $7, $8 for a good portion of this year, guys, and then just a month and a half or two ago, it's now sitting at what, 90? It's gone from 7 to 90 in just the past 3 months.
Yeah, we were at an Acapulco with Berwick and crew in February, and it was a big subject down there, right? Bitcoin and Ethereum were huge subjects down there. Even Dash, there was tons of crypto activity down there. And the Ethereum, but I personally had a lot of Ethereum conversations and was just head spun by the smart contract technology. And it was about $7 or $8, I think, before we went down there. So it doubled, or, it was in the 15s and teens. And I was like, oh, man, but again, it was Cliff's work that helped me to kind of put things into perspective. You've got to read a lot of different things and try to expose yourself to a lot of different places. And these technology, I'm convinced the cryptos, the non-bit, the altcoins are, some of they're incredibly speculative, and many of them will probably be scams and poof and go to zero and people will lose money. So, you got to be really careful with these. But I'm also convinced that some of these alts will be Google's and Amazon type companies in 5 or 10 years. So, is it crazy to put a few bucks into a bag of these and just sit on it? I don't think so. Yeah. I think you might put $200 into something like that, a handful of those, and give it to hold it for your kid in 10 years, and maybe pay for college, or more.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely a speculative space, but much of the speculation that's being made in the space is due to the technology being very effective and now being increasingly embraced by countries, governments, guys, and that is a big game changer. Guys, our guest has been Will Lehr from perpetualassets.com. Do check out his website if you need to get a hold of Will or Gus to discuss your own personal situation. Will, thanks so much for your time.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in. It means the world to us. It really does. A special thanks to our patrons over at Patreon, SGT Report. You're really giving us a lifeline to thrive regardless of what Google wants to do in the future to shut down truth. No matter what Sundar Pichai says, it is Truth Media that they are targeting. Thank you so much for your support. And check us out at thephaser.com and our online store, survivalmode.us. Thanks so much, guys. Much love. Bye-bye.
The police department nor the FBI has been forthcoming. They haven't been cooperating at all. I believe that the answer to solving his death lies on that computer, which I believe is either at the police department or either at the FBI. I've been told both.